Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in. My name's Kelly and I've been living in Shanghai now for nearly a year and a half. I'm making this video because I've been inundated with a lot of questions about what the situation in China is like in regards to COVID-19. So let's talk about quarantine and lockdown and what the differences are between them. So Wuhan, which was the center of the epidemic in China, that city went on lockdown. Not only did the whole city close down, including shops, pubs, bars, restaurants, you name it, this also meant that no one was allowed to enter the city. Only government officials and delivering food and medical supplies. All the roads were blocked. You couldn't travel through there by train, and you definitely couldn't fly into the area. What that meant for the people in Wuhan is that they had to quarantine themselves in their apartments. If you lived alone, then you were only allowed to go out every few days to collect supplies and necessities. If you lived with your family, you were allowed to nominate one person who was allowed to go out and get supplies. So quarantine was imposed in Shanghai, not a lockdown. So we still had flights operating even though they were reduced. And there were some trains that were still coming in and out. But however, a lot of the domestic trains in China were in fact stopped completely to make people kind of stay within their cities and their homes. Quarantine in Shanghai involved shutting all the public spaces, bars, restaurants, parks, but the grocery shops and the pharmacies remained open. Some compounds were manned 24 hours a day, and you could only exit if you had a little card given to you by the little man on the gate, and you had to show that in and out. But once you've used it, that's it, you can't go back out again. But anywhere you went as well, whether that be to visit a friend, go to the supermarket, go to the pharmacy, you had to wear a mask, and there was always a temperature gun ready to be pointed at your head or at your wrist. And they took all your details, anything that you could be tracked by, basically, passport, number, name, you name it. So at the moment, the UK is not on lockdown. It is in quarantine. You are advised to self-isolate. There is no law enforcement holding you at your door, barring you from getting out. You still have freedom of movement. But please, think about it, make the right decisions, and use that information wisely. Quarantine in Shanghai lasted about 4 to 5 weeks, from the 25th of January around about until about the 1st of March. There are still restrictions now in terms of pubs, bars and restaurants, and how many people they're allowed to have in them at one time, but there's a lot more freedom of movement and compound restrictions have definitely lifted. Businesses did start to slowly reopen from around the 23rd of February, but it was very, very slow process and people still weren't going out. Also, if you were returning to Shanghai in that time from a holiday or something like that, you had to self-isolate for 14 days, and that was very strict. Like, some landlords even put notices on people's doors to say, this person is in quarantine. So I can't really talk about the economic impact COVID-19 has had on China as a whole, but in Shanghai, I do know a few things that happened. So the education industry and the hospitality industry were massively hit financially. I work as a teacher, an English teacher in a training centre, and I was one of the lucky ones because for February and March, I received at least 50% of my pay, and all of my work went online. So I started using Zoom and things for online classes. But a lot of teachers did not get paid. A lot of training centres just closed. A lot of places aren't going to come back from this, and they've closed their doors for good. So it's been quite a drastic change here. Panic buying in Shanghai, as far as I know, was not a thing. So I think in the first week, there was like a shift in people stocking up and buying things. That was the last week of January, beginning of February. But after that, things were very much readily available. My biggest issue was being able to buy drinking water because you can't drink tap water in China. wasn't a problem, wasn't an issue. Like, I didn't need to worry at all. So my message to everyone in the UK, please stop bulk buying and clearing the shelves. It's really sad to hear of people who are going to the shops and having to get up really early to try and queue outside, and those places haven't had their deliveries in time to supply. It's completely unnecessary, it's greedy, and it's selfish. Please stop. So I knew this question was coming. Thanks for that. But the answer is no, I didn't contract the coronavirus, and I don't actually know anyone in Shanghai who did. Our infection rates were relatively low in comparison to the rest of the world. As it stands, the reports say about 450 odd are infected and 5 people have actually died from the virus. I do have friends here in Shanghai who know of people who have been infected in the UK, but so far no fatalities and the symptoms are very mild. One of the worst things about isolation is being thrown out of your routine, and not having a routine for some people can really put everything out of line, and it can be quite hard to like motivate yourself to get on and do things. So my advice to keeping sane during self-isolation is to get yourself a schedule, like make things for your day. Wake up at this time, exercise at this time, take your one walk a day at this time, X, Y, and Z. Get yourself into a routine. Actually, it's really good for self-discipline as well, and you can use that once this horrible period is over. Staying productive when you're in an enforced self-isolation can be very difficult, considering your spirits are really dampened and that you just don't really want to do anything. I know in my first week of self-isolation, I made it through Netflix's entire horror selection, probably. But there are, your new best friend is time. You've got some time now to really crack down and do all those things that you said you were going to do, but you never had time for. So some of those things could be learning a language. I think a lot of people don't speak multiple languages, and it is something that I found is very useful when you live abroad. Learning an instrument, or picking up that guitar that you bought that you haven't had a strum on in a while. It could be a good time to challenge yourself. My personal favourite, making healthy lifestyle changes. You have no pub, no restaurant to distract you. It's just you, your yoga mat, and your running shoes. And also, exercise is really, really great for the mind, especially in a situation like this. And it's all about keeping positive. You can also look for ways of making money online. So if you have a TEFL qualification or you're a qualified teacher, you could teach English online to students in Asia. There are also opportunities to do some freelance graphic design, copywriting, PA and scheduling. Some great websites for this are Fiverr, FlexJobs, Upwork, Guru. You could probably find more through Google search. But it's actually a really good time to start thinking about lifestyle changes and also your work changes as well, because we don't know what's going to happen after coronavirus. So it is the 26th of March, and we are 8 weeks down the line from when quarantine was originally imposed in China. And things in Shanghai are pretty much back to normal. Bars, restaurants, parks, gyms are all reopening or have reopened. And I think that comes down to people complying with the self-isolation advice, people complying with the quarantine rules. And I really hope that the UK follows in suit, because over here in China, in Shanghai, it's proven to be a very effective way to stopping the spread. And I just cannot stress enough how important it is to really, follow what the government is saying in the UK about self-isolation. You could be healthy and you might think that you're not going to get infected, but that doesn't mean anything, really. Like, you're not above self-isolation. It's about protecting others as well. If there's anything that I haven't answered, which you kind of wish was in this video, please let me know. I'd be happy to help and answer questions. But yeah, great. Thanks for listening and watching, and I'll see you all very soon.